What's up guys, welcome to another Left Stick Right Stick Dreams showcase. In this video we go through 10 beautiful nature themed scenes. And so don't forget to click that like button if you want to see more showcases like this. And I will start off with Sailing at Sunset by Samsara699. This was a beautiful sort of animation cutscene. We slowly walked through this countryside sort of scene towards the seaside, and we see the sun actually set, so the actual movement of the sun coming down, and there's a boat in the distance actually sailing across out to sea. So this is very, very beautiful. It was quite slow, and it really encapsulates the feeling of sunset, whole slowness of everything. I would say maybe the camera seemed a little too wobbly left and right. That's just a minor complaint for me, but the lighting was great, and the whole animation really sort of somewhat tells a story, which is very nice, without any words or anything. It's just great sort of setting a scene, telling a story, and there's a sort of perfect level of detail for what this scene actually goes through. The water looks very nice, the detail on the side and the countryside with all the grass and the hills and trees, and probably the actual sky looks a bit surreal, but still this is a very, very beautiful scenery, and sound effects and the music sort of add a feeling of epicness. Next up is Cherry Blossom Scene by tschip. This similarly also had some animation, but obviously a lot less. Basically we just slowly pan towards the actual cherry blossom tree. It's a lone tree in this background, but the whole thing actually looks very tranquil and beautiful. I think the sun may be slightly a bit too big, but it still somewhat fits in with the composition of this sort of scene, and I feel like I actually prefer the look of this whole scene close up rather than further away. It just looks so peaceful in there, and I sort of the blowing, the wind effects really match up together, and it's quite beautiful and tranquil. It's got nice sound effects if you can listen to it properly. Next up we have Spring Countryside Scene by GentlemanTom. This actually looks very detailed in this scene. There seems to be lots going on. Although I've been to lots of countryside, and this scene doesn't feel all too realistic, to be honest, but in sort of the layout, but never mind that. I love all the small details in there. There's like a little bird, there's a duck, there's also a cat there, there's some birds flying around, there's also petals flowing off the tree. Lots to actually look at, and sound effects just work perfectly. They just fit exactly like what you'd expect in the countryside, I guess. I think one little disappointment is that the birds, ducks move, etc. There's the bird by the river, the duck actually walked around and quacked. Its motion of the butterflies, the cat itself didn't move, but the dynamicism really keeps you interested. So a great scene. Next up we have Hotaru by memento-memory. I was a little annoyed actually at the beginning where you could actually move your imp isn't hidden away, which is a bit of a shame, but actually the scene itself looks very good. The sound effects of the bugs and the water fit very perfectly to this sort of nighttime scenery. I don't really know how realistic it is that you can see so much of the sky like the way you see it in this scene, but it really fits and it looks very mesmerizing. And nature scenes don't always have to be all green and stuff. You can have this whole sort of nighttime bluish hue, which is great. And there's also very minimal movement in this level. It's just the river streaming pretty much, and a few slow motions of the tree leaves, but those slow movements really make the scene feel alive. Next we have Above the Clouds by Elka Gaming. Now this sort of level had a more stylized soundtrack, and it was somewhat fitting. It sort of made it feel more like a journey rather than you're just experiencing a scene. I thought it had some really realistic looking clouds, and I liked this sort of panning up above the clouds from below. Well, we were technically above some clouds already, but panning off through the clouds was very good towards the sun. That was actually very beautiful. It's also very tranquil as well. The lighting is actually amazing. It's really good. And I would say, like with all the other levels in this showcase, they're just all very great screensaver and background materials. So let me know in the comments below which one you would want to use as a background or a screensaver, but this is very beautiful, and I just kept watching it again and again actually. Next we have Sunset Creek by Surreal Sailor. This sort of felt a bit more fantasy and surreal-like. I actually really liked how the mountains in the background were just seemingly simple shapes rather than any sort of high detailed sort of sculpt that's been placed very far back. That's also actually helps give it a bit more depth, I feel, because I feel like some creators, when they're trying to make these sceneries, they put a high level of detail at every level of depth, whereas at this one, it's very clear you don't really need that. It's meant to be placed further away. The actual motions of the river actually look very good, and so does the sound effects. One little niggling point I have is sort of what seems to be maybe, I don't know, pollen or tree leaves that are coming towards the screen. That doesn't seem all too fitting, in my opinion, toward the scene. That just seems a bit out of place, and maybe the sky is a bit too basic. But it's a nice sunset scene. Next up, we have a really beautiful level. It's called Sounds of the Forest by Similow, and interesting enough, I swear there is no sound in this level. I tried putting up my volume to the max, and I couldn't hear any sound whatsoever for this, so I'm not really too sure, but it's a very weirdly named level, especially it has no sound, but the lighting is superb. Great level of detail in terms of the trees, the grass, and everything. It just feels so great. It's like what you'd sort of expect in one of those really impressive paintings, really highly detailed old style paintings of a little small patch in the forest with some light coming down, because it looks very beautiful. And the small movements of the grass and the trees, although very subtle, it really does actually help the scene feel very much alive. And likewise, in the next level, Birds, Blossoms, and Beauty, there's that same thing again. Very small, minor movements that really help keep the scene alive. There's also nice use of sound effects that's actually, sparsely populated. It's not like a constant loop, which is really actually interesting to see, because not that many scenes do that. They sort of put things in a quite continuous loop in terms of their sound effect, whereas here DisarmedX actually space them out a bit more, and it makes it feel a lot more realistic that way. But obviously we couldn't really have had a scenery showcase without a Disarmed entry, because Disarmed just makes such realistic sceneries. And obviously Rockery is very realistic looking. I like how all the shrubbery and little grass and flowers are spotted around. They're not like all focused in one spot. It looks very real. The lighting looks on point as well. And as expected, the DisarmedX level detail is just immense. Next up, we have Mountain by Martinitydk. I think that's how you pronounce the name, but anyways, this was quite a fantasy sort of setting, and somewhat epic in its feel, just because there's just a lone tree standing on a specially carved rock, or mountain in this case. My sort of little complaints about this would be that the color scheme sort of implies a sort of sunset timing, but the sun looks so high up in the sky, so it doesn't quite match. But that's just a small little issue that I'd have. The level of detail is similarly quite nice and high with with the grass and stuff. I feel like grass is quite simple to do. Obviously, if you've gone through the tutorials, you'll know that grass is actually quite simple to do. But actually making it fit in where it's supposed to be, so not just only having grass, is always something that is a bit more skillful. And finally, we move on to Spring Day by Tyrexsis. This was very beautiful, and it's frankly my favourite of these 10 scenes, and probably my favourite scenery so far in Dreams. I really like the composition of this, sort of the actual tree, the cherry blossom tree, the bridge and the sun and the river. It just makes me feel so calm and just at ease looking at this. The music is very fitting, the lighting is great. I like how it bounces off the bridge as well as the river, and the actual level of petal falling. The petals are not all that detailed. It's not very much petal-like. They're just sort of round dots, but it's sort of the sort of speed at which they fall is actually very much good. Like I was saying, the music's very fitting, and I feel like I could just stare at this all day. The lighting is great. It just fills me with so much zen. But that's why this is my favourite level. I definitely would have this as my background somewhere if I could. I'd actually put it as my PlayStation background if I could. Fortunately, I don't think we can do that, which is a real shame. But I hope you enjoyed this showcase of fantastic nature scenery in dreams. Stay tuned to Left Stick Right Stick, subscribe and click that bell button. Next showcase we're going to have are some amazing characters, custom characters in dreams with their own custom logic and moves. So definitely stay tuned and I'll see you guys next time.